Welcome back to Mental Mike's Recovery Radio, where recovery meets discovery. I am Mental Mike, and this is episode 16, week 16. I want you to let that land for a moment. You have officially moved past the foundation, past the early work of just holding on and beginning to understand what happened to you. You are now in the deep work, the work of integration. And in my experience, this is where everything begins to truly shift. Previous to this episode, we have been building a foundation through energy, neurobiology, relationships, and the science of the self. This week, I want to layer something profound onto that. Depth psychology, specifically the work of Carl Jung, and specifically the parts of you that you have kept hidden, what Jung called the shadow. Here is what I have come to understand after decades of working with people in recovery. Addiction is not just a chemical problem, it is an energetic collapse, rooted in psychological fragmentation. When core parts of you, your feelings, your power, your creativity, your grief, were rejected because they felt dangerous or shameful, they did not disappear. They went underground. And from there, they have been driving behavior that no amount of willpower alone can stop. This week, we map the architecture of the psyche, the conscious ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. We look at complexes, those charged clusters of emotion and memory that can hijack the whole system in an instant. And we look at the shadow itself, not just the painful parts, but the golden shadow too, the strength, the joy, the potential you were taught it was safer to suppress. Because integration means welcoming all of it home. The goal I hold for you in this work is what Jung called individuation, becoming your true, unique, whole self, not defined by your past, not controlled by what is buried beneath the surface, but free. And today, I want to introduce you to Alicia. Alicia's story speaks directly to the heart of what this week is asking you to do. Because Alicia knows what it means to carry parts of yourself in silence for years, to build a mask strong enough to fool everyone around you and still feel the weight of what is underneath. Her journey into shadow integration, into meeting the parts she had long rejected, with curiosity instead of shame, maps directly onto every principle I have woven into week 16 of the UFM. What Alicia found on the other side of that work was not darkness, it was wholeness. So settle in, be patient with yourself today, and let's go deeper together.
We're now moving past, building the foundation and into the really deep work, the work of integration, making these concepts truly stick.
And that's the entire mission this week, integration. For the last 15 weeks, we've been building up this base, exploring energy, neurobiology, relationships, all through the lens of the Unified Flux Model, the UFM.
Right.
Now we're layering on something profound, depth psychology, specifically the work of Carl Jung. Our focus is on meeting those parts of yourself you've kept hidden, what Jung called the shadow.
All to move toward a lasting wholeness.
Exactly.
And we really have to give credit to the man who built this bridge,
Yeah.
Mental Mike. He's a certified counselor and educator, and he created the UFM to revolutionize recovery.
He really did.
He took these concepts that sound so technical, right? Quantum physics, neuroscience, energy dynamics.
Right.
And he wove them all into one practical framework. This week 16, it feels like a major turning point.
It is.
Because it's acknowledging that those blocked energy patterns we talk about, they don't just stay abstract. They show up as very real psychological struggles.
That's the key connection. This discussion flows right from last week, from our talk on relational dynamics. Mental Mike is so insistent on this point. Before you can show up authentically for other people, you first have to navigate your own internal landscape.
The one that's constantly shaping your external behaviors.
Yes. If you find yourself stuck, really trapped in those patterns of addiction or avoidance or just disconnection, the answer lies within.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why does recovery demand that we look at Jung?
Because addiction is so much more than a bad habit. It's more than a chemical thing. The UFM sees it as an energetic collapse that's rooted in psychological fragmentation. Think about it. When core parts of you, your feelings, your talents, even memories, are rejected because they felt dangerous or shameful, they don't just go away.
No, they go underground.
Exactly. These disowned shadow parts, they operate from the personal unconscious, and they drive the compulsive behaviors, the self-sabotage, the shame spirals, all of it. So recovery requires this immense courage to finally confront that hidden self. Because until you do, it's still in control.
To start that confrontation, you need a map. And Mental Mike gives us one using Jung's architecture of the psyche.
The 3 layers.
The conscious ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. Let's start with the one we think is running the show, the conscious ego.
Right. The conscious ego is your center of identity. It's the I that narrates your life, gives you structure. It tries to navigate the chaos of the day.
And from the UFM perspective, it's what channels your energy into action.
It is. But here's the problem for someone in active addiction or even early recovery. The ego becomes incredibly rigid, defensive. It's either trying to force energy into these impossible patterns of control and perfectionism,
Which just leads to burnout.
total burnout, or it collapses into being passive and helpless.
And the addiction cycle feels like that, doesn't it? Just this exhausting swing between those two states.
It's a pendulum, and it happens because the ego is trying so hard to control things it can't even see, things buried right under the surface in the personal unconscious.
Okay, so that's the next layer down, the personal unconscious.
Exactly. This is the reservoir of everything that felt incompatible with your ego's self-image, so it was repressed, forgotten, memories, feelings, desires. This is the main home of the shadow.
But it's also the birthplace of something else, something the UFM really highlights. Complexes.
Some complexes are crucial here. And yeah, the UFM gives them this energetic spin. They're these emotionally charged clusters of thoughts, memories, experiences that act like little autonomous subpersonalities.
Autonomous. Meaning they can just take over.
They can seize control of your consciousness. Maybe you have a work murder complex that tells you your worth is based on being busy, or an unworthy lover complex that sabotages every healthy relationship.
Mental Mike even says addiction itself can function as a complex.
It's a perfect example, a powerful, triggered constellation of craving and shame and need that just hijacks the whole system.
That sounds exhausting. And energetically, it must be.
It is. Every single suppressed emotion, every rejected part of you. It locks away life force in that unconscious layer.
So shadow work isn't just a mental exercise.
Not at all. It's the deliberate, required, energetic release of that trapped life force. Until that happens, the energy has to go somewhere. It manifests as anxiety, compulsion, physical symptoms, or, you know.
The drive to use?
And then there's the deepest layer, the one that shows us we're not alone in all this, the collective unconscious. Right. And this layer has nothing to do with your personal story. It's the shared human inheritance. Archetypal images, universal patterns, things that are wired into every single human across all time and all cultures.
Like the hero's journey or the need for initiation.
Exactly. And recognizing these patterns makes your personal struggle feel bigger, less like a personal failing.
Which brings us right to the shadow itself. And for a lot of us, that word shadow sounds scary, like it's evil or something. We need to clear that up.
We do. It's simply everything you rejected. The parts that felt unacceptable, shameful, or dangerous when you were growing up. It holds your destructive impulses, yes. But, and this is critical, it also holds tremendous untapped energy, creativity, and potential that you've cut yourself off from.
And here's where the link to addiction becomes just undeniable. Addiction is often just a really inefficient management system.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a way to suppress the intense internal pressure from those disowned emotions. The rage, the grief, the neediness, the substance of the behavior just numbs that internal civil war for a while, but it prevents any real integration.
And the shadow is always operating, whether you can see it or not. So recovery means we have to learn its language. Mental Mike breaks it down into 3 key warning signs. The first is projection.
Projection. That's that intense, almost over-the-top reaction you have to qualities you judge in other people. Their weakness, their arrogance. It's usually a sign that you're just seeing your own disowned vulnerability or maybe your own ambition reflected back at you.
The second is compulsion. When you act in a way that just goes against your own conscious values, that moment you feel powerless over a behavior.
Yeah.
That's the shadow operating outside the ego's control, forcing its energy out.
And the third, dreams. The unconscious is always trying to communicate. And shadow figures often show up in dreams as, dark or scary characters.
Yet they're personifications of those parts that are demanding your attention.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the real liberation in recovery comes from integrating these specific shadow elements that have been driving the whole cycle.
Let's look at the big four that Mental Mike emphasizes in the study guide, starting with rage.
Rage is such a common block. This isn't just being annoyed. This is suppressed, often legitimate anger from past betrayals or neglect with nowhere to go.
And it either turns inward, becoming depression, self-harm, that brutal inner critic.
Or it erupts and destroys your relationships.
Exactly. So working with shadow rage is essential. It means you acknowledge it, you find its origins, and then, this is the key, you channel that powerful energy into healthy boundaries, into authentic self-expression, instead of letting it destroy you.
Then there's grief. If loss isn't felt, it doesn't leave. It just accumulates.
It creates this emotional numbness,
Yeah.
the heaviness, or just a sense of meaninglessness. It's a huge energetic drain.
And the addict tries to fill that void with substances.
Right. So allowing that grief to finally move, to weep, to mourn, to acknowledge the loss, that is one of the most powerful energetic releases there is. It literally cleanses the system. It lets those rigid defenses finally soften.
And we have to talk about shame.
Shame is the most toxic. Because it's not just an emotion, it's an identity belief. I am bad. I am defective.
The Unified Flux Model sees shame as a profound energetic contraction.
Yes. It's the self-collapsing inward, like hitting the emergency brake on your soul. It stops the natural flow of life force.
So when you see shame as an energetic contraction, the way forward changes.
It has to. Integrating shame requires this. Radical, almost defiant self-compassion, using tools like breathwork, movement, conscious self-talk to gently coax those energy channels back open. You have to prove, through action, that you aren't flawed beyond repair.
And finally, something that can be a little tricky, the golden shadow.
This one is so important. These are your positive qualities. Strength, intelligence, creativity, joy that were rejected because expressing them brought you punishment or rejection when you were a child. You learned it was safer to play small.
Dim your light.
Yes. And reclaiming these positive, disowned parts is vital. If you only integrate the dark shadow, you'll stop feeling bad, but you won't feel truly alive. You need that golden energy to reach your full potential in recovery.
Shifting now from the personal to the collective unconscious, to archetypes.
And it's important to remember these are organizing, energetic fields, universal patterns. Recognizing that your personal struggle connects to these larger, shared human themes is just incredibly liberating.
It shifts your whole perspective.
It does. It moves you from what is wrong with me to realizing you're just taking part in a universal human drama.
And some archetypes really resonate in recovery, as the UFM points out. There's the addict archetype, obviously.
Right. The universal tendency to seek escape and immediate gratification to avoid the pain of growth.
But then once you start the work, you can shift into the wounded healer.
This pattern is beautiful. It recognizes that your struggles, your wounds, once they're integrated, they become sources of profound wisdom and compassion.
Transforming suffering into service.
That's the active expression of the archetype.
And the whole recovery process really mirrors the hero's journey. You leave the ordinary world of addiction, you face these terrifying internal trials, and you return to life transformed with new tools.
It's the story of everyone who recovers. And all of these patterns are moving the psyche toward its ultimate goal, which is centered around the self.
The self, not the ego. This is the organizing center of the entire psyche, the archetype of wholeness. It's massive.
And in the Unified Flux Model, we understand the self as the optimal pattern of energy coherence for your unique system. It's basically who you are when you start interfering with your own true nature.
And that definition leads us right to the ultimate goal, individuation.
Jung's term for the lifelong process of becoming your true, unique self by integrating all those conscious and unconscious parts into a coherent whole.
It's the path and the purpose of recovery.
It is. Hitting bottom or having a major relapse, that's often an individuation crisis. The ego's illusion of control is shattered, and it forces the psyche open to transformation.
The pain actually accelerates the journey.
It forces the encounter with the shadow that the ego is trying so desperately to avoid.
So this journey of individuation, it requires specific tasks. The study guide highlights 3 key ones. We've already talked about shadow integration a lot.
Then there's persona work. The persona is that social mask, the false self you built to hide the inner chaos. Individuation means you have to loosen the grip of that mask.
You have to realize the person you thought you had to be is often the exact opposite of who you really are.
Right. And finally, animus-animus integration. This is about balancing those complementary masculine and feminine energies within you.
Like balancing emotional vulnerability with assertion and strength.
You need both for wholeness. And when we connect all this back to the UFM, individuation is simply the process of bringing your personal energy system into optimal coherence with the larger field.
Mental Mike has that great line, borrowed molecules on borrowed time.
It's so grounding. It gives you humility, but also profound freedom. You're not trapped by your past. You are a momentary, perfect flowering of the universe. This constant process of becoming is what frees you.
This is massive internal work. It demands tools. And the study guide provides exercises that are not just psychological, they are energetic interventions.
That's how we have to see them. They're designed to reorganize how your life force moves and to remove those blockages we've been talking about.
So let's talk about some of these practices. First, dream work.
Dreams are energetic communications from your unconscious. They're trying to bring balance by showing you what you're ignoring when you're awake.
And the practice is simple. You don't need a dream dictionary. Just journal about it. Ask yourself, what does this symbol feel like? What emotion is this character carrying?
That simple act of conscious attention creates the connection. It helps integrate the message.
Then there's active imagination.
A powerhouse tool for engaging with trapped energy. If you have a persistent, troubling emotion like anxiety, you consciously give that feeling a form, an image, a character, and then you dialogue with it.
You have a conscious conversation. Why are you here? What do you want from me?
Exactly. You're stopping the cycle where that anxiety just drives your behavior from the shadows. You're bringing the trapped energy into conscious awareness so you can work with it.
And finally, one of the most essential practices, somatic shadow exploration and shadow breath.
The body holds the shadow. Mental Mike always says that. Suppressed rage, shame, grief. It's all in your chronic muscle tension. You can't just think your way out of it.
You have to move it out.
You do. Using conscious movement or sound or forceful breath, like that 4-4-6-2 release breath. 4 seconds in, 4 hold, 6 out, 2 hold. These techniques let the body discharge that held energy safely. It's the most direct route to freeing that locked life force.
So what does this all mean for you right now?
It means that the parts you've tried so hard to hide, to suppress, to get rid of, they are not your enemies. The Unified Flux Model teaches us they are lost fragments of your wholeness.
They hold your vitality, your power, your connection. It's all been locked away, just waiting for you to welcome it home. The work isn't about destroying the shadow. It's about integrating it.
Every single time you choose consciousness over avoidance, every time you meet a difficult emotion with curiosity instead of shame, you are actively doing the work of individuation. You are becoming more whole, more conscious, more alive.
Embrace this ongoing journey. That is where your true freedom is.
So carry this question from the study guide with you this week. Really sit with it.
What aspect of your shadow has been most strongly activated or revealed this week? And what would it mean to welcome that part of yourself home rather than continuing to reject it? What would that welcome even sound like?
I used to think recovery meant becoming a completely different person. Cleaner, nicer, more acceptable. Like I needed to erase who I had been and replace her with somebody people could finally respect. That podcast changed the way I see all of it, because instead of talking about destroying the shadow, they talked about welcoming parts of yourself home. That hit me hard. Because honestly, I've spent most of my life abandoning myself internally. The podcast said addiction is psychological fragmentation. That felt painfully accurate. There's the version of me people saw at work, confident, sexy, untouchable. Then there was the terrified version underneath that couldn't sleep without meth because silence made traumatic memories louder. I kept those versions completely separated from each other. That separation eventually started destroying me. The part about complexes made so much sense too, especially hearing them described like little sub-personalities that hijack your behavior. Because sometimes when cravings hit, it honestly felt like another version of me took over completely. A desperate version, a reckless version, a version that didn't care if I survived. The podcast said addiction itself can become a complex. That explained years of my life instantly. I promised myself I was done, mean it completely. Then one emotional trigger later, everything changed. Suddenly, my whole mind reorganized around escape. That wasn't weakness, that was unconscious survival programming. The shadow projection stuff got uncomfortable fast too. I realized the women I judged hardest were usually women who reminded me of parts of myself I hated. needy women, emotionally vulnerable women, women who looked insecure. Truth is, I was terrified of my own vulnerability. I learned early that vulnerability gets exploited, so I built a persona instead. That mask they talked about in the podcast? Yeah, I know that mask intimately. Mine was confidence. If I looked powerful enough, nobody would notice how broken I felt inside. But maintaining that mask became exhausting. The podcast said recovery means loosening your grip on the persona. That's terrifying, honestly. Because when you stop performing strength, you finally have to feel what's underneath it. For me, that was grief. A lot of grief. The section about grief being trapped energy almost made me cry because nobody ever explained my numbness that way before. I thought I was emotionally defective. Really, I was emotionally overloaded. And meth let me outrun grief temporarily. That's all it was. Movement away from pain. The somatic stuff in the podcast surprised me too. The shaking exercises, the breathing, the sound release. I tried it alone one night after therapy. Started crying halfway through for reasons I couldn't even explain logically. But afterward, my body felt lighter somehow, like something trapped inside me finally moved. That experience changed my view of healing because now I understand trauma isn't just stored in memories. It's stored in the nervous system, in posture, in muscle tension, and breathing patterns. My body had been carrying survival energy for years. And maybe recovery isn't just getting substances out of your bloodstream. Maybe it's teaching your body that the danger has passed. The golden shadow concept stayed with me too. The idea that we also bury positive parts of ourselves. Joy, creativity, power. That made me realize addiction didn't just bury my pain. It buried my potential too. And maybe the real work now isn't becoming somebody new. It's recovering the parts of myself I disconnected from in order to survive. That feels different than punishment. That feels like coming home.
If something in this conversation stood out to you, don't ignore that. That's usually where the work begins. Recovery isn't about trying harder. It's about understanding what's actually happening and learning how to respond differently over time. If you're ready to take the next step, you can find resources, guidance, and support at soulrecoveryhub.com. Take what you heard today, sit with it, and keep moving forward. Copyright 2026, Mental Mike, all rights reserved.